Hello everyone, my name is Fatih Şemsettin Işık. I'm a junior fellow at Sharq Forum, and today we have the conference called Towards a New Security Architecture for the Mena region in Istanbul. And I have with me Dr. Walter Posch, a senior researcher at National Defense Academy in Vienna. And today we're going to talk about the elections in Iran and the JCPOA deal that constituted a historical landmark for the country. Yes, welcome Mr. Posch. How are you? How do you find the conference so far?
Well, as all the Sharq Institutes and Sharq Forum's conferences, it is an extraordinary, interesting and exciting conference. And of course, Istanbul is a fantastic place to be, even with the weather like this.
Thank you so much. Let's talk about the upcoming elections in May. Actually, all indicators are showing that Rouhani is still leading the polls or the expectations. But what is the expected result for you? How do you regard the elections? And after this expectations with the JCPOA deal and the economy, how is your opinion about this?
Well, let us start with why Rouhani still is the perfect candidate. That is on two levels. The first one is on the elite level. He's not belonging to any of the political currents, if ever. He was one of the pragmatists close to Rafsanjani. But don't let us forget that Mr. Rouhani is a person coming from the security apparatus. This means he has a much better understanding of the pressure under which Iran is, of the ambitions Iran has, and to top it, he's a realist who's got the backing of the supreme leader. At the same time, he's somebody of a little bit, I don't want to say a bridge builder, but somebody who can talk to groups who are on a very ethnic sectarian line, on a very narrow ideological basis, and groups who are almost secularists and very open-minded, and all the varieties in between. That's an asset. That makes him interesting also for the regime as such. A person they can trust, a person with management qualities, a person, of course, under pressure, as Iran is under pressure, but a person also who, as a cleric, understands certain concerns of the clergy, and as a man of politics understands demands of the people on the other side. So that's the strong side of his. Now, you mentioned correctly the JCPOA and the expectations. Yes. There was, of course, expectation management done on behalf of the Iranians, and to the degree they were anticipating the slow pace of sanctions relief, they were successful. However, they could not anticipate certain aspects in style on the American side, like Mr. Trump putting the whole deal under question, being noticed, put on notice by an American general who turned out then to be basically fired afterwards or had to resign afterwards. So these things are irritant because the JCPOA, and I think you are spot on mentioning as a landmark diplomatic environment, not only for Iran. It's, I think, one of the last important treaties done between Western powers plus Russia and China already, and the Muslim country. Whether one agrees or disagrees with Iranian policies, but the fact is that on a complicated set of negotiations, a sovereign Muslim country was engaging and negotiating its way in a very, very complicated multilateral setting. So this politics aside, I think this was success was on both sides, and it shows for me also a little bit a shift of the paradigm. If you remember, Turks, Ottomans, and Iranians share this past of the capitulations of these treaties. And now look, there's a new standard in how the Muslim world communicates with the West on the base of international law, on the base of political realism, with total lack of naivete. Both sides know that they are ideologically very different. and with remaining reason and dignity at the same time, with a high amount of pragmatism and giving him on other affairs. Now, the Iranians did not expect that such a shock would come from Washington. For the time being, they're hiding their bets. The other shock was they knew that there will be no immediate sanctions relief which will simply open the floodgates of money coming in. And there are two reasons for this. The first reason is the sanctions, unraveling the sanctions is much more critical and much more complicated than sanctioning a country. One of the main disagreements within the Western camp was, which put a little bit Germany aside of the others, was to say, to convince powers that sanctions are meaningful as long as you can unravel them.
Yes.
That's the tool. So in the end, this worked, but the pace was very slow. This has to do with the international banking system, and this has to do, but to a larger degree, in my view, with homework Iran didn't make for the last 40 years, and Iran failed to address during the years of Ahmadinejad. 8 years, 8 critical years, I would say. This means Iran is out of the SWIFT code system. Coming back there is very, very complicated. Iran faces still another set of sanctions. Even so, one could see some kind of hope and re-engagement, especially from the European and the Russian and the Chinese side in Iran. Now, what makes things so complicated is that Mr. Rouhani was campaigning a bit and selling the nuclear deal as the one tool to do away with all economic ills of Iran. But red tape is an issue which has been in Iran all along, which is something all countries are struggling with. Of course, if you're only in your own environment and not exposed to international capitalism, red tape will increase dramatically. Youth unemployment is a very serious issue because still entrepreneurs, Iranian entrepreneurs, are not sure yet whether they get, let alone foreign entrepreneurs, whether they get the returns for their investment in a proper way. You still have a mixture between a very populist Islamist political language and sounding very socialist, third world socialism, concerning banks, concerning the rich people who you would expect to invest and so on. And always the fear, this creates a fear and atmosphere that once you're successful with your business, you might be expropriated or you might be taxed to death. Let alone the problem of tax-free competition within the Revolutionary Guards, the religious foundation and so on. So there's a lot of homework Iran should have addressed in a timely manner.
Then let me ask this question. One of the critiques that were posed to the Iranian administration is the power of Revolutionary Guards, especially in the economy. And if in the event of Rouhani's victory in the elections, how do you expect a future, like in terms of the administrating mechanism, maybe because there were some friction between some Revolutionary Guard figures and Rouhani. Do you think that Rouhani will protect its, in a sense, political safe zone and Revolutionary Guards will continue their domination in the economy, or something will have to change for the sake of the course of events? What do you think?
I think we just see a change. We don't know whether it goes in either direction, but I think we see a change. Why? Basically, these clashes you were mentioning between Rouhani and figures of the Revolutionary Guards are, you can say, part of a negotiations process, which is not closed yet. And one of the problems is there are two sides of it. And they go beyond Iran as a revolutionary Islamist regime. This one is, we have throughout the region, the military being active in economies like in arms technology and so on. There are good reasons for this. The fact of arms embargoes, that you have to lower the reliance in military arms production from Western countries or from the East and so on. There are reasons for this. Of course, the next step was actually a smart decision to privatize. Now, once you're in between, we all know, this is one big part, namely in the defense sector, in the defense arms and defense production sector. Well, you have privatized, semi-privatized, and of course, everybody then has its pet project to promote something. There has to be a rationalization, and I think this is what they're doing. This is, so to speak, the easier part. Because it remains under the roof of the defense ministry, and it's a question of auditing, it's a question of streamlining the system. I think that is the smaller problem. The bigger problem is what the spin-offs of what have been called Khatam al-Anbiya, because here too there was a necessity to allow the Revolutionary Guards to do it. Because why? Because they were the military corps of engineers. They come out from military trench building on a large scale, which then was put to the disposal under Rafsanjani's term to increase, get away with the damage, with the war damages they had, street construction, road building, airport, whatever, you name it. But from then onwards, you had, and they call it the Sozimon Wabaste, which are they are related in a kind of, and we don't see the laws, we don't see the regulations, so how are they exactly related to the General Command of the Revolutionary Guards? And they function in a way as a roof below which, when you have a private enterprise as a Revolutionary Guard officer or so, you can basically act tax-free. And this goes far beyond. You know, we know for sure that people who come back from the Quds force of the Revolutionary Guards, which is now an independent military branch, are active in the money business, in banking, and so on. And due to the sanctions, of course, you do the same thing as happened under Saddam Hussein. You try to build up an alternative economic system. Now, there are winners in this system. The losers are, of course, Iranian taxpayers. The losers are, of course, rationality of the Iranian economic system. But there was a reason. And now Rouhani is in this delicate position. On one hand, he has to roll back these businesses which are neither legal nor illegal. So on which basis do you roll back what has been a useful procedure for the last 15 years? Under the fear that the West will not honor sanctions relief. That's one. And then let alone the banking system, which has to live. Yes,
definitely. Okay, thank you for your insightful comment. I think that was quite beneficial for understanding the issues for Iran. And I'll see you for a next video of Al Sharq, inshallah.